Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, but mostly gentlemen, to another episode of Inside the Aisle. I'm your host, Nikki Wolf, and the reason why I say mostly gentlemen is because today's episode is all about men's health. But the funny thing is as I worked many years in the vitamin department, it's generally women coming in for their significant others to ask about men's products and how they can best support their partners. So anyways, today is all about men's health and just giving a deeper understanding about testosterone, nitric oxide, prostate health, and many of the complications that arise with men, especially as they age. So if you're interested in learning more, let's get started. All right, guys, the first kind of condition or product we are going to be talking about is prostate health. So there's a saying that goes, it is not a matter of if men will develop prostate issues, it is when. So if you are a gentleman 40 and up, you should absolutely be doing a prostate formula. Something that I also find very fascinating, I don't know why, is that Stevie Wonder takes our prostate formula. So if you're listening, Stevie, thank you very much for supporting. Stevie Wonder. Why did I say that? Stevie Wonder. I don't know why that sounded weird when I said just his first name. Anyways, so this is going to be a glandular support. And let me give a kind of a simpler background on how the prostate works before we even dive into how to support it. So a few things that generally affect or symptoms that arise if you have prostate issues: nocturnal urination, so waking up in the middle of the night to empty the bladder, not complete emptying the bladder. So maybe a guy goes to the restroom, pees a little bit, but not everything comes out. And so 20, 30 minutes or an hour later, he has to go again. It's because he's not being able to completely empty the bladder. There could be inflammation of the prostate and then a number of other prostate kind of more serious conditions. So here's the thing. The urethra is where the urine flows out of. Prostate surrounds the urethra like a donut. And through different environmental or lifestyle changes, that prostate becomes inflamed, squeezing on that urethra, so creating a lot of those urine issues. And so what we want to do is not only support the integrity of the cell walls or just general prostate health, but we really want to work on reducing the inflammation of that prostate. So again, just real quick clarification, urethra is where the urine flows out of. Prostate surrounds the urethra like a donut. Through different reasons, that prostate becomes inflamed, squeezing on the urethra, creating the very common urine symptoms. So with this formula, let me see if I can show you so you have a little bit of a visual of our prostate formula. So this is our men's formula. And I will tell you this, and we'll get to this, or maybe I'll say it now because I'll probably forget. Each of the men's formulas we are going over today, women can actually take, and I'll tell you why. Prostate, we won't go into depths, but prostate formula is fantastic for women with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. They tend to have higher levels of testosterone, and they tend to have urine issues or interstitial cystitis or incontinence. But this formulation, the ingredients in here are phenomenal for women with PCOS. So we'll kind of touch upon each of the men's formulas and why women can particularly take them. So let's break down our prostate formula. And let's start with saw palmetto, because saw palmetto is one of those ingredients that I think we commonly understand that are supportive for the prostate health. But why is that? So here's the thing with saw palmetto. What it does is there is testosterone in a man's body. There is also in women, but women have far less testosterone than men. So we're just talking about men for right this moment. So there's testosterone in the body. There's an enzyme that converts some of that testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, DHT. DHT is not a problem. Too much DHT is a problem. So think of that, I don't know, maybe as, well, sugar is completely a problem, but like maybe caffeine. Caffeine's not a problem, but too much caffeine is a problem. So again, you have testosterone, there's an enzyme that converts some of that testosterone into DHT. DHT is not a problem, too much is. So we want to make sure we don't have too many of those enzymes, because if there's a ton of enzymes, it's going to convert a ton of testosterone to a lot of DHT. And that's where things go wrong. Elevated levels of DHT can create balding, inflammation of the prostate, and other more serious prostate issues. So again, our goal is to reduce the amount of those enzymes. So the enzyme in the body that's making that conversion is called 5-alpha reductase. You don't need to memorize that, but it's helpful to know. So we want to make sure we don't have too many 5-alpha reductase enzymes in the body. This is where saw palmetto comes in handy. Saw palmetto is a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. So it's going to inhibit the amount of those enzymes so we don't make a huge conversion of testosterone to a large amount of DHT. I hope you're following. I hope I made that easy to understand. Long story short, saw palmetto will help reduce the amount of DHT in the body. DHT is not bad. Too much DHT is bad. Now, this is why I love Life Seasons for so many reasons. But one, the fact that we create holistic, synergistic formulas that look at the body as a whole. So that's functional medicine. I'm a certified functional health coach. So what we do and what the functional approach is, let's look at the individual as a whole. Let's get to the root problem as what's going on. So for instance, if a guy comes in your store and he's balding, maybe it's not here, take biotin or collagen that's going to solve the issue. Maybe he has elevated levels of DHT creating that balding. So what he really needs is saw palmetto. And in our hair, skin, and nail formula, Beauty, we put saw palmetto for that exact reason. So I absolutely love that about our company. And I mean, we even put other ingredients for thyroid, for adrenals, for hormonal imbalance, because sometimes that's what's creating the issues as to poor hair, skin, and nails. It's not just your biotin and collagen, which biotin and collagen are fantastic and we use those. But again, it's getting to the root cause of what's going on. So just to quickly recap the saw palmetto, it is that it inhibits that 5-alpha reductase inhibitor so we don't create too much DHT. Now let's jump on to Swedish flower pollen. So Swedish flower pollen is actually sold internationally over the counter. So it's a very high commodity ingredient. It's also very expensive to harvest. And so that's why this formula might be a little bit more costly, because it is a fantastic ingredient and very effective. We have nettle in the formula, which helps with healthy urine flow. Again, that's one of the most common symptoms with men with prostate issues is frequent urination, nocturnal urination. We also have vitamin D3, which is going to help support the relief of BPH, so benign prostatic hyperplasia. That's a mouthful right there. We also have a phytosterol complex. So that's the main plant chemical that is found in saw palmetto. And so that's supportive for healthy prostate and just overall healthy urine flow. Let's see what else. We have B6, we have zinc. Okay, this I find fascinating. And so zinc is such a crucial mineral in our body, and we need it, especially with everything going on. Zinc was one of those main ingredients that everybody was after to boost our immune system. So zinc is crucial for so many things in the body. I think it's a catalyst for over 800 different reactions in the body. So it's very crucial. But when men ejaculate, they lose a tremendous amount of zinc. It's about 5 to 15 milligrams of zinc per ejaculation. And it's so funny, not that that's funny, or not that this is funny, but you'll make the connection. There was an article posted of a group of, I think it was a large group of young boys being hospitalized for zinc deficiency. So you can just put the two and two together and figure out why. But my point being is zinc is very important for healthy prostate issues. And when men ejaculate, they lose a tremendous amount. So the fact that we are putting that back in there is going to be really supportive and nourishing for the prostate gland. We also have selenium and pumpkin seed oil. Again, antioxidant support, healthy for normal urine flow, and just going to be overall generally helpful for the inflammation and the integrity of the cell walls of the prostate. So again, if you are a man over 40 years old, if you struggle with frequent urination, nocturnal urination, BPH, prostatitis, this is the formula for you. I would highly, highly recommend getting a prostate formula on your hands. So that's the prostate one. Next one we are going to go over is masculinity. So a lot of times, and hopefully I can clear these things up so I can make it easy for you guys to understand, but there's masculinity and there's nitrity. And so the two different categories we're going to talk about is testosterone and nitric oxide. And they tend to be just a lot of information. And so a lot of times people get them confused. So hopefully I can make it a little bit easier to understand. So I want you to think of masculinity, focus on the N. So mood, muscles, mojo. Those are going to be the three things it's most beneficial for. Boosting testosterone is going to affect the mood, the muscles, and the mojo. So let's break those down. So the mood, that's your sexual mood. That's the desire. That's the drive and that sex drive and the libido. So boosting testosterone in the body is going to help support that libido, that mood. So for whatever reasons, and sometimes it's generally the elderly, but it's also young boys can face this for whatever reasons. Hormones out of whack. Maybe they went through some trauma and their, neurotransmitters are just not firing correctly. Getting your testosterone regulated is going to be really effective at boosting that sex drive and libido. So we have the tribulus and long jacks in this formula that are going to boost testosterone. And then we have the mirapalma, maca, and fenugreek are going to be supportive for that libido. And we'll break those ones down in a second. Muscles. So this is one of my favorite things to talk about. And this is another reason why it's beneficial for women. Boosting testosterone is going to help put on muscle. So men generally have higher levels of testosterone. They generally have an easier time of putting on muscle mass. Also, women with PCOS, they have higher levels of testosterone. African American women, higher levels of testosterone. So it's easier for them to put on muscle mass. So if you're a gentleman coming in the store, or if you are a lady and you're struggling putting on muscle or definition, you're like, I'm eating protein, I'm working out, I'm taking my creatine and all these different things, but I'm not noticing a difference in my definition of muscle, perhaps you're low in testosterone. So looking at taking a testosterone formula is going to be so beneficial. So, and the nice thing about this is kind of as we were talking about the 5-alpha reductase inhibitor with the prostate formula, what that's all doing is it's regulating with your body. We're not adding in anything like synthetic that's going to throw your body off, where you have to cycle off of and on something. So for instance, with steroids, you would have to cycle on and off. So a lot of people ask if masculinity is a product, you have to do that. You do not need to do that because of the enzyme and kind of inhibition that works in the body. So for instance, aromatase, remember how we were talking about that 5-alpha reductase? So when it comes to testosterone, aromatase is an enzyme that converts testosterone to estrogen. So again, aromatase is that enzyme that converts testosterone to estrogen. And fenugreek, you sometimes see that in the women's section, but what fenugreek does is it possesses an aromatase reductase inhibitor activities that is the enzyme responsible for breaking down of testosterone. So fenugreek is going to help make sure that your body doesn't create too much estrogen. So kind of all those enzymes are working somewhat similarly to the prostate as well as the testosterone. So fenugreek is going to be really supportive for supporting testosterone production. So hopefully that made sense. I know a lot of fancy language, but if you learn how to say it, you sound kind of fancy. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so boosting the testosterone in the body is going to help put on muscle mass. And then lastly, mojo. You guys have seen the movie. Mojo's like what makes a man feel a man, and that drive and that go-getterness. I mean, generally speaking, that men tend to be, on average, more aggressive and women slightly more submissive. And it's also has to do with the science and the biology behind our bodies, that men generally have a higher levels of testosterone. And so that is what creates that drive and that go-getterness. And I would consider myself, one, I do have higher levels of testosterone because I do have PCOS, but I also tend to be not so much of a submissive individual. I have that go-getter, that drive, that like sassiness. And so as men age, that testosterone starts to decrease. And so if there's a guy that started out in his 20s, 30s, 40s, was really like taking charge and initiative and doing this, and you notice as he aged, he's kind of softened up, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all, but you just notice that drive and that inhibition start to decrease. Sometimes that has to do with testosterone. So taking a natural formula is going to help boost that mojo. So just to round everything out, the M in masculinity stands for mood, muscles, mojo. So let's call out some of the main ingredients in here, see if there's anything new that I can add. So again, the tribulus is going to boost that free testosterone in the body. So we're not putting more testosterone in the body than it needs. We're just increasing the amount of free testosterone. So the free testosterone is what is actually doing the work in the body. Whereas I believe more steroidal testosterones increase the amount of total testosterone in the body. Don't like, what's the word? I can't even think of it. My brain is dying today. But yeah, all I know is this works naturally with the body. Holistically, it's, you're never going to have too much. Your body will filter it out. Long Jax is going to be, so it supports the decrease in the sex hormone binding globulin. So that's kind of what I was referring to is when we have testosterone in the body, you want all those testosterones to be free testosterone. That's what's actually going to do the work. But what happens is sometimes there's this thing called a sex hormone binding globulin, which attaches to the testosterone so it's no longer free. So it looks like our testosterone is dropped in the body. It hasn't. It's all still there. It's just no longer free. And so that's what I refer to, or what I mean by, the taking regular steroids versus taking a natural substance, is we're not adding more testosterone in the body than you would normally be used to. All we are doing is freeing up that testosterone. So imagine like two cells are clumped together. You need them separate to actually do the work. And so Long Jax is going to separate that sex hormone binding globulin from the testosterone, now naturally increasing the amount of free testosterone. I know that was a lot. I feel free to pause, rewind, hear that over again. If you're curious to know more, let us know in the comments, and we can always do a deeper dive on this. But so again, it's also going to support the increase in DHEA. We have Mirapama, which is also known as potency wood. So that's going to help support the body sex drive. It's also known as an aphrodisiac. It also supports relaxing the smooth muscles. So that's going to be really helpful for men struggling with erectile dysfunction. So we'll get to that with the nitro tea, and that's kind of generally around that. But if that's an issue, the Mirapama in this formulation is going to be helpful for ED. We have maca, which is fantastic for men and women, supports overall energy, stamina, libido. It's also an adaptogen, so it's really good for that. And fenugreek, which I mentioned before, it will increase testosterone production by inhibiting that enzyme that converts too much testosterone to estrogen. So that's kind of cool. We have niacin, which is a B vitamin. That's going to help just with overall cellular energy. Horny goatweed, such a fun name. That's going to help support dopamine, that feel-good hormone that's just going to get us in the mood. Oat straw, which will support nervous system. Korean ginseng, which is a really good energizing tonic. It's also an adaptogen. We have ginkgo biloba, which helps support nitric oxide and vasodilation. So opening up those blood vessels to get the ingredients in quicker and just see a quicker reaction. We also have katuba. I think that's how it's pronounced. There's some very difficult words to pronounce. in the herbal world, but that is going to be supportive for the central nervous system. So again, balance out the mind so the body can get to work properly. So who would love this? Men with low testosterone, men over the age of 40, and men who are looking to support athletic performance and recovery. And then also for women who maybe you're struggling with weight and you are doing everything. The more muscle you have, the more calories and fat you burn. I believe it's each pound of muscle, you burn an additional 50 calories per day. And I would highly recommend, if you are a female listening who's struggling with fat loss, like you're trying to lose fat, not only increase your muscle mass, but focus on your legs, because your legs have the biggest amount of muscle in the body. And so if you're only going in, I mean, you want to do full body, but if you're only have the time to focus on something and you work on strengthening your leg muscles, that is your biggest muscle that's going to burn the most amount of calories. The most, if you can make your legs into this like machine, you're going to be burning more calories throughout the day than if you were to just like work a bicep or whatnot. Again, holistic, we want to look at the body as a whole, but if you were to just start off right away, I would say, and you have to prioritize, focus on building that muscle, especially in the legs. All right, so that's going to round out masculinity. Lastly, let's talk about nitro T. So I just updated the recording situation and I believe I can share my screen. So hopefully this works. Let's see what we got. All right, so I made this for some of my clients a while back, but I think it'll be helpful for all of us as well. So nitric oxide, it's kind of a, we hear it, but a lot of us don't really know what it is. So let's see what is nitric oxide? So it is a gas that vasodilates your blood vessels. So vasodilation, all that means is it's opening up the blood vessels. So either ingredients can get in quicker or blood flow can move much quicker. So again, that's all that nitric oxide is. But let's talk about why it's used and why it's beneficial and why you would want to start taking this as a regular supplement. So I want you to imagine for a moment a hose in a garden. The hose carries water, which nourishes the plant so they can blossom and thrive. But if there's a kink in that hose, what happens to the water? The water stays stagnant and doesn't come out. It's stuck. And so when this happens, the plants don't get the nourishment they need, and eventually they wilt and die. So let's make that connection back to the body. I want you to think of your blood vessels, your capillaries, and your veins as that hose. Now, what kind of liquid does your blood vessels carry? Blood, obviously. And what does your blood carry? It carries cells, nutrients, and oxygen. So if we go back to that hose analogy, if there happens to be a kink or vasodilation in that blood vessel, what happens to the blood? It stays stagnant. And the cells, the nutrients, and the oxygen do as well. So they don't go anywhere. So when this happens, your body is depleted of the oxygen and nutrients. So for example, if you're struggling with brain fog, that's because of lack of oxygen to the brain. If you're struggling with cold hands and feet, lack of oxygen to the extremities. If you're struggling with erectile dysfunction, lack of oxygen to the penis. It is not a muscle or a bone that's creating that issue. It is blood flow and oxygenation. So your brain fog might not be due to lack of caffeine. Your cold hands and feet might not be due to being unprepared for weather, and your erectile dysfunction might not be due to low testosterone. So those are very common things that a lot of people think. So it could be your nitric oxide levels that are the biggest culprit. So I want you to think of nitric oxide as unkinking that hose. So you're really opening up that hose. So now all of a sudden blood flow can move, which means the blood flow and the oxygen, the nutrients, the cells, all of that can start moving and getting to the areas of the body that might have been lacking for it. So if you're looking to improve your performance, whether that's for sexual reasons or athletic performance, Nitro T by Life Seasons is fantastic. Again, women can absolutely take this formula. I know it says men's on the image, but with every product in our men's formula, women can absolutely take it. And we have had so much feedback and success with women taking these formulations. So here's some of the main call out ingredients in here. We have citrulline, which that's actually going to convert to L-arginine in the body. And so you might be asking, well, why don't I just take L-arginine? There's actual research that shows that taking the precursor, so L-citrulline, works more efficiently in our body, absorbs the arginine better than taking arginine itself. So I think I have it in here. Yeah. Yep. So the Journal of Nutrition study shows that citrulline actually delivers the most benefit. Citrulline expands blood vessels to a greater extent than arginine. So if you were looking to support your nitric oxide levels and maybe you're taking arginine, nothing wrong with that, but L-citrulline might be a better option for you. Then we have L-theanine and kava. So it's going to support that state of calmness so that your brain is ready for your body to get an athletic or sexual performance. And then again, we've mentioned this before, you have the Mirapama, also known as potency wood. It relaxes the smooth muscle tissue, which allows for increased blood flow, healthy erections. And again, you do not need a penis to still benefit from Mirapama. Fantastic ingredient for many women. So one other thing I love mentioning, a lot of times in this section in departments, you will find Yohimbe. So Yohimbe is not bad. You just want to be cautious of what else it does. So Yohimbe is an herb commonly used for erectile dysfunction and body composition, but there's research that shows it can increase blood pressure. And depending on the individual reaching for a nitric oxide support, we want to reduce those chances of elevated blood pressure. So generally speaking, a lot of individuals going to that section in the department tend to be older men, and there's a high amount of them that are already on medication, especially blood pressure medication. So we really want to make sure that we avoid ingredients that are going to increase that blood pressure even more. So you will not find Yohimbe in this formulation. And if you think about it, if we're not putting Yohimbe in there and it's opening up that blood flow, the blood pressure kind of actually naturally decreases. I mean, you think about, you have a hose that's kinked, and you unkink it, that water doesn't have to push quite as hard. It can now relax. So I hope that sums up. Let me see if there's some other ingredients. Wild oat, which is a nervine. It supports as a tonic, supportive for cognitive function. So again, calming the brain so that the body can work properly. Korean ginseng, a phenomenal energizing tonic, an adaptogen. Let's see what else we have. Ginger root. So I would recommend, let's talk about the three formulas, when to take them, why to take them. Men, if you are 40 and up, you have urine issues, or women that struggle with higher levels of testosterone, maybe cysts on their ovaries. Masculinity, if you struggle getting in the mood, you have a low sex drive and libido for whatever reason, or you have difficulty putting on muscle, or you just feel like your drive has decreased, as well as for women who are trying to put on more muscle mass. And then lastly, nitric oxide. This is going to be your performance product. So this is going to be for sexual or athletic performance. All right, guys and ladies, I hope that cleared things up. I hope that was easy to understand, or at least simplified it a bit and give you a little bit more clarification on why take this formula. If it's is it the right one for me? Should I be including this in my daily supplement routine? So again, thank you so much for supporting Inside the Aisle. If you haven't already, it would mean the world to me if you could follow, subscribe, rate, and leave a comment if you've enjoyed this show, if it's provided any sort of value, and share it with your friends and family. So thank you so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, see you later.